Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Push. Push.
Abi,
Right now.
kona ngosunjani?
Right.
Mm.
Njengoba uzawonyula u-acting chair ne-chair utakekho.
Okay.
But sendimxelele kuwiphi.
Kutshela nto kufuneka axelelwe nguwe Abi.
Hayi umxelele undifowunele nam.
Oh,
Bexelelwe nguye wafowunela mna wathi utshe uthi akazoba ndathi ewe bendixelele. So ndabe ndimbhrifa ke ngokuba uza.
okay. Sharp ke ntombi.
Kufuneka sibe namalunga ke mnganam.
Huh?
Kufuneka sibe namalunga for iquorum.
Eh,
Okay ke.
okay. Sharp.
Molweni bahlali. Kanjani mamkhakhasi?
Siphilile hlala khona ninjani tata?
Philile nama kabikhonda. I am on the platform, but I've requested Honorable Tape to chair because I'm not in a position to do so as I'm attending a conference being addressed by President Putin in Moscow, Russia. So I will be on the platform though.
Okay, noted, Chair, but we're still waiting for members. We only got you and Mamutape on the platform. We're waiting for the members.
All right. Thank you.
Can start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair. I think we can start the meeting now. We do coordinate. We've got 5 members on the platform. We can start the meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Good morning, honorable members. I don't know if you mean that I should start. For those that have not been able to log in earlier, exactly at 9, the chair has been on the platform, honorable members. He is on the platform. He has spoken to us and requested that for now, I continue with the first item on the agenda. He is not at a place where he's able to start the meeting. So he has requested that I stand in for him for now. He is on the platform, but he cannot speak. He's attending a plenary now. that is about to be addressed by President Putin. He's in Moscow as we speak. Having said that, honorable members, let me welcome everybody who's on the platform, the honorable members of this committee. I don't know if the executive is here. I don't see anybody at the moment, but most of all, also welcome our
Sorry.
presenter for today.
Sorry, Chair, we've got DM Kappa on the platform, Chair.
Oh, no, you welcome DM Kappa. Sorry, I was checking my attendance register and I thought the executive has not logged in. Honorable members, we having 2 items to deal with for today's meeting. That is briefing by HEMP for life. And at this point, let me take the opportunity to welcome Mr. Ben Sussman, who is already on the platform. And it will be a briefing by HEMP for life on government production support to cannabis and hemp producers and agricultural entrepreneurs in South Africa. The second item will be consideration and adoption of the 2023 BRRR. Ma Kakaza and Albertina, I think we should check if we have any apologies for today's meeting. As I indicated, the chair is on the platform. He should be able to actively participate after 9:30.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've got an apology from Minister Didiza is having a doctor's appointment, and DM's Kwacha is attending ministerial bilateral engagement. And then Chair Tatu Tsebekulu is going to join the platform a little bit later. Tatu Tsebekulu, okay, yes, thank you. And also we are also having an apology from acting DG, Mr. Serache. He is requesting that he be excused around 11 to attend the select committee meeting. Thank you, Chair. That's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, honorable members. Let's note those apologies as we proceed with today's business. As I indicated, the first item will be that one from HEMP for Life. Mr. Ben Sussman, you are here. You can take the platform, introduce yourself. If you have any team that you are with, you will indicate and take us through your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity and Madam, sorry about that, Madam Chairperson, I appreciate that. But more importantly to the committee, and I appreciate the opportunity and the time to do this presentation. Just to give you a 1-minute background, my name is Ben Sussman. I'm currently in Cape Town, but I've been living in Johannesburg for the last 24 years. I'm a Cape Town boy, just from the accent, but I've been living in Johannesburg for 24 years. And 5 years ago, I started working with the cannabis and hemp farmers, setting up their businesses and also expanding into Botswana and other territories in Africa. But what I've picked up is that there's a serious disconnect between the rules and regulations which has been set up by government versus what the farmers are experiencing on the ground. And I just wanted to bring this to someone's attention. I'm very impressed to see that there are so many participants in the session today. So that means that everyone is taking this seriously, and I appreciate it. If I can just share my screen, then I can start. And if you have any questions as I'm going along, please, you can just stop me or put up your hand and you can ask your question. I do not mind I will try and be as brief as possible going through this. Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone can see my desktop. If someone can just confirm.
Yes, it is visible.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll just continue. Yeah, I don't want to treat everyone like 5-year-olds, but I thought I would just quickly cover the difference between cannabis and hemp, so that everyone is on the same page.
Recording in progress.
So if you put 10 cannabis and 10 hemp plants in front of me, even though I've been in the industry for 5 years now, I will not be able to tell you the difference between a cannabis plant and a hemp plant, because they both look the same, they feel the same, and they smell the same. If you rub the stem and you smell your fingers, they both smell the same. The only difference is I can tell you if it's a male or a female plant, but cannabis and hemp looks exactly the same. The only difference is the tetrahydrocannabinol levels in the plant, and it's commonly known as THC. So cannabis has got between the standard cannabis plant has got between 15 and 25% THC. So what that means is if someone smokes the cannabis plant, the part that gives you the high is the tetrahydrocannabinol in the plant. So genetically engineered cannabis can go up to 35%, and that is commonly known as in the good kush. So the only difference is that hemp only has 0.2% THC in it. What that means is you can smoke a cannabis, a hemp joint the size of a street pole, and it won't give you a high. There's no effect. So it does not have any THC in it. The other acronym that we all know is CBD. Now, CBD is cannabinoids. Now, cannabinoids is the chemical in the cannabis and the hemp plant, which is used for pain medication. It's used for epilepsy, seizures, a whole host of medicinal purposes, but it's used for pain medication in cancer treatment. So it's a Schedule 1. It's the same as opioids, or is the same as a high-level painkiller. Now, because of the THC levels in these two plants, they are regulated by two different departments. SAPRA regulates cannabis and gives out the cannabis licenses, and the Department of Agriculture looks after hemp and gives out the hemp permits to the public. Now, I just want to give you, if you have a kilogram of cannabis or hemp in the form of a brick, just a kilogram. Now, cannabis sells at 16,000 to 20,000 rand a kilogram, whereas hemp, a kilogram of hemp only sells for 5 rand to 11 rand a kilogram. So there's no financial value in raw hemp, but there's a lot of value in raw cannabis. So if someone is cultivating 50 hectares of cannabis or hemp, they're going to harvest 14,700 kilograms of product. Now, if you sell that 14 tons of cannabis, you're going to end up with 13 million rand. But if you sell 14 tons of hemp, you're going to end up with 73,000 rand. So it's not, hemp has never been a feasible product as a raw material. You have to process hemp into CBD crude oil, which is from 14 tons, you're going to end up with 3,700 kilograms of crude oil. And that you can convert into CBD isolate, you're going to end up with 448 kilograms. And if you sell that to the market, you're going to make 4.8 million rand. But this is a bit of a process. So just to explain the process of monetizing cannabis versus hemp, I just want to show the difference between the two. If you plant your hemp seed, your cannabis seed, it takes 4 months to grow to an adult where you can then harvest the plant. And once you harvest the plant, this is what you're harvesting. It's the bud or the flower, only the bud or the flower. And that has to be trimmed. So all these little leaves has to be cut off. And then you're sitting with your cannabis product. And that gets sold directly to the client at 16 or 20,000 rand a kilogram. Hemp, on the other side, if you plant your hemp seed, it also takes 4 months to grow to an adult plant. Once you harvest it, you then shred the whole plant. So you're shredding the stem, the leaves, the flower, you just remove the roots if the whole plant gets shredded. But as I said, you're only getting 5 rand to 11 rand a kilogram, so it's not feasible. That you have to then process. So you then have to put the shredded plant through a drying process where you remove 90% of the moisture out of the plant. The preferred way is to dry it with the sun in the air, or you can put it through a drying machine, but you're removing 90% of the moisture. Once the plant is dried, you mill it into a powder, and that powder gets put into an extractor plant. Once it's in the extractor plant, you have to use some chemicals, CO2, ethanol, and some other chemicals to convert it into crude oil. Once you have it in the crude oil form, through a winterization process, which is by freezing it and letting it melt, you then process it into CBD isolate, and then you can sell it to your client. So hemp is a much longer process and a more costly exercise. Cannabis, you just grow, harvest, and sell it to your client. When you the farmers who are selling their cannabis, they need to get an offtake agreement or purchase order from outside South Africa. I'll get into the laws why we cannot sell cannabis in South Africa yet, but there are many cannabis farmers throughout the world making it a very cutthroat or competitive market. Just to give you an idea, there's more cannabis being grown in Africa than millies. So the price is negotiated. South African sellers or farmers are getting anything from 12,000 to 15,000 rand a kilogram when they're selling outside South Africa. Hemp isolate, on the other hand, fewer companies are producing isolate around the world, making it a more rare commodity, and the prices are highly negotiable. At the moment, as of January 2024, isolate is being sold at $760 US, which is about 13,000 rand a kilogram of isolate powder. So it's more lucrative to sell isolate, but it has to be processed. The Department of Agriculture has issued over 371 permits to South African farmers who applied for hemp permits. That is across the country. And SAPRA has issued 102 cannabis licenses. Now, the process is totally different. There are some similarities, as in police clearances, which has now been dropped on the agriculture side. property leases, seed import permits, and so forth. But there's 102 cannabis licenses that's been issued in South Africa. I just wanted to give you this history so that what I'm about to explain makes a bit more sense. I want to talk about the perception. During my presentation, I do not mention the word dagga, because dagga has a very negative connotation and a very negative history attached to it. As soon as people see the word dagga in the newspaper, it's always something negative. There's nothing positive about it. So myself and others in the industry, we never refer to cannabis as dagga. We will call it cannabis, cannabis sativa, or we'll call it medicinal cannabis, because cannabis has got so many positives attached to it, medicinal value, value in food, and so forth, that the perception is still very negative. If you look at the board of directors of SAPRA, SAPRA has got 14 board of directors, and only 3 of them are under the age of 50. So it's a very old school, old crowd that's the directors of SAPRA, and hence the rules and regulations that go with it has old and negative connotations or perceptions attached to it. I just want to give you an example. A journalist contacted me about the hemp industry, and she interviewed me for an article, the article on the screen. And she asked me if I knew of someone else that's actually cultivating with their own money and trying to get funding from government. And I gave her Tebogo's name and number, and she contacted him as well and interviewed him. So the article is about our 2 companies. But just to give you an idea of the perception, when she ran the article, she never mentioned my company name in the newspaper, because my company name is Hemp for Life. It has a positive ring to it. But she chose to put in Budweiser, because Budweiser has got a more cannabis dagga term to it. The other thing that she asked both of us to supply pictures of ourselves that she wanted to print in the newspaper. And this is the picture that I submitted, and this is the picture that Tebogo submitted. And I definitely don't look like a hemp farmer. I probably look like an accountant or something. But Tebogo, with his dreadlocks and his beard, they wanted that image to go with the article, which is all about perception, about what sells newspapers, and what is wrong with journalism about cannabis and hemp in the industry. I want to touch a bit on what politicians are saying about the industry. Now, every premier or MEC wants their province to be the hub, the cannabis or the hemp hub of South Africa. The Premier of Gauteng mentioned in an article that he wants cannabis to be the hub, his province to be the hub. The Free State MEC spoke about cannabis being the hub, the Free State being the hub for cannabis as well. The Western Cape has got high hopes for the market. The Eastern Cape and Gauteng, once again, they've got high hopes for their provinces. Once again, dagga. Everyone is using or stating that they want their province to be the cannabis and hemp hub in South Africa. But when it comes down to government support in all the provinces in South Africa, I'm on a couple of cannabis and hemp WhatsApp groups. And I have access to over 200 cannabis and hemp license and permit holders. And all of us talk. None of them, including myself, has ever been sponsored or funded by the South African government, whether it is our provincial departments or national levels. Everyone has applied for funding. No one has received funding, whether it's to purchase a farm, farming equipment, seeds, or any form of funding. And when I say zero, I mean zero. No one has received. So I understand that cannabis and hemp is a high risk sector because it's only 5 years old. We've only legalized cannabis and hemp 5 years ago. So everyone feels your funding houses, they feel it's a high risk sector. That's why they're not funding. Others like the DTIC, the Black Industrialist Scheme, they only refund or reimburse. So you need to invest 20 million, 10 million. And once you've invested in your farm, they will refund and reimburse to that value. Hemp and cannabis is still not a recognized crop in South Africa like mealies or potatoes or anything else. So because it's not a recognized crop, all the commercial banks are not getting involved. They cannot fund any. Then you have Desti and others, Cedar, CIFA. They do not fund startup projects. So if all of us are startup operations, cannabis and hemp farming has not been around for 100 years legally in South Africa. So all of us are startup funders, startup businesses, and they do not fund startup companies. The other problem that Land Bank has, or the other problem is that Land Bank says, if your projected revenue, annual profit for your business is more than 50 million, they cannot fund you either. And cannabis and hemp is very lucrative. So if you are sitting with a 50-hectare farm, which at the time was the maximum, your profits will be over 50 million a year. And because of that, they cannot fund you. Others simply just say that their budget has been depleted, whether it is an excuse or reality. These are the excuses and these are the reasons given why the cannabis and hemp farmers cannot be funded by government or has not been funded by any government funding institution. So when I talk about your commercial banks, I've approached all the commercial banks, the DTIC, all the acronyms, CEDA, CIFA, the IDC, the Free State Development Corporation. So all of them I've approached like other farmers, and all of them have declined our applications. So there is no funding that's been given to any cannabis or hemp farmers. When I put together my business plan, I was gathering quotes for certain things that I needed. The capital that I required went up all the way to 79 million rand for what I wanted to do 100%. After struggling to secure that, I revised the business plan, making cuts, bringing it down to 65, down to 41, and down to 25 million. In other words, not purchasing a farm, not buying farming equipment, not building a warehouse, just looking at the agro processing part of the business by buying hemp biomass from other farmers. I had to drop my capital required from 79 down to 25 million, and still it's a problem securing the funding. Now, a lot of the funding institutions, and I'm specifically talking about Land Bank and the National Empowerment Fund, their funding would have come with conditions. So they wanted a purchase order for the hemp product, which I had. They wanted a purchase order or offtake agreement for the vegetables, which was a bit of a struggle, but I also had it. But the main thing that Land Bank wanted was a water license for the farm, because the farm I wanted to purchase did not have a water license, and legally Land Bank could not fund without a water license. Now, the quote that I got after applying to the Department of Water Sanitation, going through phase 1 and phase 2 successfully and entering phase 3, I was given a list of requirements, and those requirements was going to cost me 886,000 rand to be compliant so that I could give that to Land Bank. I could not secure the 886,000 rand. Other farmers have gotten quotes of close to 1 million rand for a water license requirements. Now, if you know anything about a water license, whether you are opening up a mining operation, which is 500 million rand in Limpopo, or you're opening up a wine farm of 10 million rand in the Western Cape, the water license requirements are the same. The regulations are the same, and the cost is the same. There's no exceptions, there's no exemptions. And I could not secure this money, so it's just a nightmare securing money from the government funding institutions. Everyone is if you look at just the Eastern Cape and KZN, they've got over 900,000 cannabis farmers, illegal cannabis farmers, just in those two provinces. Now, remember I said SAPRA has issued 102 cannabis licenses, but you've got over 900,000 cannabis farmers just in two provinces. And government and everyone else is throwing around the number of 50 billion rand a year income. The industry is worth 50 billion. You can generate about 50 billion rands worth of revenue off the industry per year. That is an accurate calculation. It might be an underestimation, but it's accurate. Now, what I did was I contacted SARS and I asked SARS how much revenue was generated for the financial year 21 to 22. How much money did SARS make of cannabis and hemp? Now, cannabis and hemp has got their own tariff codes. Every product in South Africa, whether you're selling bicycles, computers, or cars, every product has got a tariff code. Cannabis code is 3004 and hemp's code is 5302. So for the year of 21 to 22 financial year, SARS only collected 6.3 million rand in revenue. Now that is insulting. Now, the reason is it's because of the bottleneck that we have with SAPRA and not legalizing, but allowing people to cultivate cannabis and hemp. There are so many restrictions around it, and the laws, you are allowing cannabis farmers and hemp farmers to farm unlimited hectares now. The hemp has just changed in October, where it went from 50 hectares to unlimited. Cannabis has always been unlimited. So if you're cultivating 1,000 hectares or 2,000 hectares, the law states you are only allowed to smoke cannabis for recreational purposes at your own house. So me as an individual, I can grow up to 16 plants at my house. And once the buds or the flowers mature, I can then smoke it at my house. Cannabis cannot be bought or sold in South Africa. It is still illegal to buy cannabis or sell cannabis in South Africa. So what that means is every cannabis farmer has to find a buyer outside South Africa. I'm not talking about cannabis license holders selling to another cannabis license holder in South Africa. Farmers are doing that, but you cannot sell to anyone else. You cannot share, you can share cannabis with your friends at your house. So if you invite buddies over, you can give them cannabis, but you cannot sell it to them. It is still illegal to sell the product to them. The concept of cannabis social clubs, where a member will pay 1,000 rand a month to be part of a cannabis club, and then they go to the club and the owner will give them cannabis to smoke in the club. That is also illegal because you are still circumventing, but you are still paying for the cannabis that you are using. So you cannot smoke cannabis at a cannabis club. It is still illegal. You cannot smoke cannabis in a public place like a park or walking down the street, because you need the consent of adults, or there might be children around as well if you're in a public place. So the laws for recreational smoking of cannabis, there are so many restrictions. So SARS is not going to, or the government is not going to benefit from the revenue generated. The only time you can sell cannabis or hemp is by exporting it to another country outside the borders of South Africa. I've also secured an offtake agreement for my product with a company in the US. They still have to show me their import permit for hemp products and so forth. Now, SAPRA has issued or created a Section 21, which allows the man in the street to legally buy cannabis and smoke cannabis without being arrested. Now, what that means is if a farmer has 50 tons of cannabis or 50,000 kilograms of cannabis, cannabis is usually bought 2 grams at a time for people who smoke recreationally. That means you would need 25,000 Section 21 holders to buy up 50,000 kilograms. And at the moment, or the last time I checked, SAPRA has only issued 3,600 Section 21s. So if you roughly look at the amount of cannabis smokers in South Africa, you're roughly looking at 4 million people that smoke cannabis. SAPRA does not have the administrative infrastructure to issue 4 million Section 21s if after 5 years, we've only successfully issued 3,600. So the laws do not complement or work with the cannabis farmers. All of us, cannabis and hemp farmers, are forced to sell our products outside South Africa. And realistically, there are only 3 cannabis farmers that have offtake agreements with one company in Canada, one in the Netherlands, and one in Germany. And that is 3 out of 102. Now, I saw this committee report, which was posted in 2022. And this nicely summed up the disconnect between what government is doing, the rules and regulations that's been put in place, and the struggle of the cannabis and hemp farmers. I do not like to read when I'm doing presentations. Everyone can see, but there is a total disconnect between the cannabis master plan that's been put together by the government and what the farmers are enduring. Farmers are struggling to get equipment. Everyone is saying we must make hemp fiber products, clothing items, but you need machinery to strip the fiber off the stems or off the stalks. And those machines do not come cheap. The extractor plant that I want to buy is 8.5 million rand, which converts the biomass into crude oil and then into CBD isolate. Government has not funded any of the cannabis or hemp farmers. And this is where the bottleneck is happening. This is why there's no revenue that's being generated. And I think this report summed up nicely the disconnect between the rules and regulations that's been put in place versus what the farmers are trying to achieve in the field. But thank you very much. I'm happy to field any questions, but thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sussman. Honorable members, I thought you were still going on and on. Your thank you came very quickly. Very interesting presentation indeed. At this point in time, honorable members, let's welcome the acting DG, Ndate Serache. He has managed to join. We received an apology earlier on. I'm opening the platform for engagement on this presentation. Honorable members, do you want me to go with the list? Okay, Honorable Chwet, let's start with you. I was looking for the hand myself.
Oh, okay, Chair, thank you. I raised my hand just now because I know how you would prefer the meeting to go. Instead of going hand by hand, line by line, then you would prefer hands. Thank you, Chairperson. This is Honorable Chweta. Can I switch off my video now, Chair?
All right.
Thank you. I have load shedding in my area, so to open up a video might be a challenge. Good morning to the honorable members, the presenter from HEMP for Life, the department, and everybody that is in the meeting. Chair, let me appreciate the presentation from HEMP for Life. Indeed, Chairperson, some of the things that he brought before us are happening in terms of the challenges that the small farmers are experiencing. I think it's something that we needs to be looked at by the department. The fact that there is no funding, the challenges of funding, the challenges of farmer support that this industry, these farmers that are farming hemp are facing. Indeed, as a department, we have a cannabis master plan that we are currently busy with. Indeed, as the department, they issue hemp licensing and maybe we should also look at the farmer support of those that are issued licensing. And yes, in terms of the interdepartmental programs with the public enterprise. Public enterprise department, mainly it focuses on big businesses, which you cannot find a small scale farmer or hemp farmer that is really catered there. For me, Chair, is to really, this presentation is an eye opener because I was really wondering. There are farms around in the Eastern Cape that were farming hemp in Grahamstown, and also another farm here nearby me in Tanzania by a young man partnered with some people there. That farm just closed. They could not farm anymore. They could not do hemp anymore. They were farming, take their produce and do that, hemp, juice. They would produce hemp juice. It looks like a ginger beer, but it's hemp. They would do that. All of a sudden, they have to close shops because they have to do that out of their own money. The marketing, the packaging, the everything. So indeed, I appreciate this presentation. It's something to take forward as the committee, that maybe we should also pay much attention to hemp farmers, because there are small scale farmers that are are farming hemp. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chwete. Honorable Masipa.
Chairperson, sorry for my delay. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to colleagues and the department. Chair, I really welcome Mr. Sussman's presentation. I think it's a great eye-opener for all of us. And I think there are critical issues here that are being raised and which are very important that us as a committee, you know, and they're pointing at us as really failures as well. And I think, Chair, we have to really accept that our oversight on this particular aspect has been really, really very, very weak. You know, we get reports of, you know, so many hemp permits being created, you know, licenses being given, and all this fancy report. But really, I mean, the key questions that Mr. Sussman is asking us is, what has been the profit that has come out of this hemp? What has been the contribution to the tax base? You know, he's shown here with very clear examples that he has set approval from NEF and with conditions, and those conditions are very difficult to meet. So I think, Chairperson, the issue here for me really is to call the department, you know, to come and account. And if it means that calling all the, call it the BRRR, you know, to understand, you know, what are the challenges in terms of really making this industry a thriving industry by assisting, you know, some of our farmers. So really for me, the question really for Mr. Sussman is that maybe if he can really share with us what has been the work that has gone into this cannabis master plan, you know, whether he's really been part of the cannabis master plan and how much resources has been and what consultation has taken place and yeah, what is really being done to really support that master plan, from really putting the what do you call skin in the teeth, you know, from the government side and obviously from private sector side. I would really appreciate to get an update with regards to what is really happening from that point of view. Thanks very much, Chair, and really thank you very much, Mr. Sussman, for your really boldness of coming before the portfolio committee, really sharing these experiences of some of the heavy red tapes of doing really a simple thing where I think we are really, we have got an opportunity, sorry, of really making a huge impact through this. Because we've got the resources, we've got the natural resources, but I think it's just for us to enable our willing entrepreneurs, you know, to be able to step up and really show the world that South Africa can do it. But yeah, Chairperson, I think that's really my say, but I'm really disappointed that we are really here to listen to this, whereas we should have really gone out and go find out and do it our mission, you know, to really engage on this. We are at the end of our term and we have got absolutely no legacy. Unfortunately, this is what the presentation is saying to us. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Masipa.
Chairperson, I would like to answer two questions.
Oh, what we usually do, we give everybody a chance to make comments and questions, then we come back to you.
Excellent.
To respond. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sussman. Honorable Kappa.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning and good morning to everyone. And also, thank you very much for this presentation. I'll only ask one clarity, Chair, which might make me have or ask some follow-up later or clarities later. But at the moment, I would just like to understand that how much involvement of the people who have been originally producers of cannabis, how much are they involved in this process now? I also ask this because there is some understanding or belief that now that there is some legality in production or use those who have been trading it illegally for many years, they might be marginalized, or it will be taken only by those who have the capacity. And also there's this problem of some people who know only about cannabis. And when you talk of hemp, they suspect that it wants to do away or reduce their business. But now these are the people of South Africa. They are involved in this production in this trade. So if we get some clarity there, so we can be able to plan further and understand further the complexities of this process. For now, let me get that clarity, Chair. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Kapa, Acting DG, and DM Kapa. That is DM
Sorry,
Kapa.
Chair.
I will give you to comment at the end. You note what the honorable members are saying. Somebody was saying, sorry, Chair.
It's still cool, Chair. Still cool. I thought maybe you're allowing the gentleman to.
No. I was just indicating because some of the comments would also want the department. So Acting DG is here and the DM is here. We move to Honorable Matthias. Honorable Matthias, are you in the platform? Okay, let's then move to you, Honorable Kebekulu.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning to you, Chairperson, and honorable members, the support team of the Portfolio Committee, and the gentleman and Mr. Sussman. Chair, I would like to first find out, as I heard him saying there are about 102 issued licenses of cannabis. Out of that number, how many Africans are part of it? That's the first question. The second question, Chair, I'll need a clarity. I heard him saying it can be used for smoking, but a few weeks back, we received a team of processors, I could say, who were saying this is not good for smoking. It's only for production certain produce or products. What is the real what is the real use of this cannabis? If some are saying it's not good for smoking or it's not meant for smoking, and as the gentleman was saying, it could be smoked by those that smoke, but it's not allowed to be sold. One can have in his own house or farm, but are not allowed to sell it to individuals. Lastly, what I want just to find out, do they have an organization like we have in farmers' organizations, those who are dealing with sugar cane, those who are dealing with what are called these millies or grain farmers, I could say. Do they have an organization in this type of farming? Lastly, as I've just been saying, I've heard from the guys who are saying they are hemp processors, saying that they have an interest in coming to the rural areas to assist, because it's quite impossible for poor people to sort of plant or plow, harvest, and distribute to those that processing it. What I want just to find out, do they form part of, or Mr. Sussman, does he form part of those who are going out to communal land seeking land use for cannabis plowing? If so, do they go for partnership in those fields where they want to plant, or if it's part of, let me say, if it's part of those who go further to the rural areas or communal land, do they form partnership, or do they go for leases on those land where they want to plow that? But once again, if they are part of, if he is part of those that are going up and down in cases and wanting to sort of go and enter into this farming business in the rural communal land. Thank you, Chairperson, and I'm so sorry to sort of coming through not by this system of raising hands, you know, as a challenged person when it comes to touching this raising hand for record. This icon. Anyway, thank you.
Not a problem, Khosi Tebekulu. I have resorted to the style of the chairperson of the committee to go through the list. Is Honorable Matthias ready on the platform? I saw Sam on the roll call. Dr. Matthias, are you with us? Let's then give Honorable Letlape.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to yourself, to the honorable members, colleagues. Let me first welcome the report or the presentation by Ntate Sassman. I think what he's doing here, Chair, is really a cry for help, more than anything, because his presentation shows us how he's looking forward to stepping into this space and to being given space to produce what the country has got an opportunity of making so much money out of, and we're not utilizing that. Because if you look at the current laws now, they are farmers. It gives big farmers an opportunity to go and do farming, to go and produce and all of that. But what is most worrisome is how this cannabis and hemp is being grown in South Africa, but we are not making money out of it. If SARS can only make 6 million out of it, it just shows how we have not included cannabis and hemp into the economy cycle of the country. And we also know the capacity that it can produce in this country. So I think the problem is how we have capitalized this cannabis and hemp, in a sense that it is grown in South Africa, we export it, it comes back as finished products, where South Africans must also, or even those farmers must now buy the same products, where else we could have done the same thing of producing, and more people can be given an opportunity to produce and to reproduce and do all these kinds of things, produce other products, use them, and still make money and ensure that the economic cycle continues in the country. So I think that is the first problem that we have, that our laws and regulations are too restrictive to our own people to be beneficiaries of what is grown in the same country. And the second one, Chair, you look at the conditions that he was given, which is also very worrisome, because if you say a person must have at least 800,000 for a water license for the farm, how many of our small-scale farmers have got no access to water? Because the reality is that the land that you would need is the land in rural areas. It's the most fertile land, but the disadvantage is that there is no access to water. And that is why it is important for the government to have an upper hand into ensuring that small-scale farmers get assistance. And I don't think we are doing that much in terms of assisting our people to finding themselves in this space, which is very problematic, because we are going to continue losing money as a country, but also it discourages farmers if they are not getting the support they need from the government itself. And then Tate Masepa was saying, we are going to leave now with no legacy to say, there was this that came in. Look at how many countries are now legalizing cannabis and all of that, not just for personal use, but because they've seen the potential that this product can bring to the economy of the different countries. And maybe South Africa should also look into that. We have not put in a lot of effort into looking at how much we would make, but what are some of the advantages outside monetary advantages? What are some of the advantages that could, assist the country, the government, and the people at the lower level? So I think that the Sasman is crying out for help. The one question that I would ask is, since he came to the portfolio committee to do this presentation, he's obviously looking for something positive out of this portfolio committee and his presentation. What is it that he's looking into? What is it that he wants to come out of? And what is it that that is hoping for the portfolio committee to engage in, to agree on, to push, so that not just him as a hemp farmer, as an owner of a hemp company, but for all the other small scale farmers, for all the other owners of companies that are looking into stepping into this space of cannabis and hemp, knowing the advantages and the disadvantages that would bring to the country. Thank you, and to the economy as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Letrape. I've noted your hand, Honorable Matthias. I will come back to you. Let's then move to Honorable Briet.
Thank you, Chairperson. I have no questions.
Thanks, Honorable Briet. Honorable Mbabama.
Thank you very much, Dr. Klape, and all protocol observed. I just have, I think, two questions for the presenter. He said something about having gone to the land bank, and if I remember rightly, he had ticked everything went well with the land bank up to the part where he needed a water license. Now, I'm wondering if, because I know that it is very difficult to get a water license, and has he thought of working with farmers on the ground who are already farming with cannabis or hemp? I'm thinking of the Port St. John's area in the Eastern Cape, where a lot of people there are actually farming informally with cannabis. As an off-taker, have an off-taker agreement with them, and would his license, because he said that it's still illegal to sell cannabis or hemp in South Africa, would his license that he's got allow him to have an off-taker agreement with our small farmers on the ground? I can see, I'm sure he can see that almost all of us are interested in getting the small farmers on board as well. And I think it would put him in good stead with the financiers if he brought people like that on board, in his business, to actually also assist in spreading a little bit of the pie to our small farmers. And then secondly, I'd like to know, did he have agreements to buy his produce, and who did he have it from when he went to the land bank? Which overseas countries were willing to purchase his produce? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honorable Mbabama. Honorable Matthias, back to you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, these two colleagues. May I quickly welcome the presentation. I may have missed a lot of what was presented because I'm traveling, and as I speak now, I'm at the airport and I might not be that audible. All what I can say, Honorable Chair, is that I agree with Honorable Letape that Honorable Sussman's presentation, or Mr. Sussman's presentation, is really a cry for help. And there could be many people in the country out there who have similar concerns and face the same challenges as his. And the question is, what is it that he was looking forward to from this portfolio committee? What type of answers was he looking for when he thought of writing to the committee to arrange for this presentation? I'm asking this because I don't think the committee is in any position to answer to these concerns or questions in an environment where the department was not called to come and provide and listen and provide answers, unless if this is part of what has been scheduled for this meeting or in the future, that the department must provide direct answers to what Mr. Sussman has said. Thirdly, and this is my last point, the kind of complaints and concerns that our people have about taking advantage of this emerging industry is that most of our people don't realize about the institutional, structural fragmentations in government, incoherence, policy incoherence, legislative incoherence, and all departments who are supposed to be addressing this matter that Mrs. Sussman has raised function in silos. And because of all of that, that has produced a kind of red tape, of bureaucracy, and a whole range of other challenges that our people are faced with. Besides financing challenges, Parliament and government broadly need to deal with the legislative policy institutional incoherence, and also to address the problems that accompanied in how cannabis or marijuana or dagga or matekwana or insango has been perceived for so many years by society, and how such perceptions and challenges are addressed, and ensure that we come to a point where we admit and acknowledge that cannabis can make a meaningful contribution in driving our economy and in ensuring that as many possible people are drawn into the industry. I think those are the things that needed to be done, and perhaps the committee through you, Chair, will guide on the process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Matthias. Any other honorable member that I might have left out? None. Okay, from my side, honorable members, let me also welcome a presentation, as we have alluded to, is the eye-opener and a reminder that as this committee, we might have not done what is expected or more that should have been done. Ndate Serage has left the platform. He's now with the select committee, and Dr. Jafta will be here for the comments for the department, and DM Kapa will follow. But from my side, honorable members, I think I must just start with the departmenters, and when they make their comments, why is there no funding up to now for hemp or cannabis farmers, because we have seen the evidence that there has been request in that regard, even to private institutions. We know that for you to be funded, you submit the request with business plans and whatever. And that is coupled with what Dr. Sasman indicated, that probably it's not hemp or cannabis, it's not a recognized crop in South Africa. Why is that the case? From the department. I have also previously gone into the website and checked the requirements compliance. Many documents there, how you apply for license for hemp, what is done, how do they come and inspect and everything. A lot of requirements, fencing, storages, kilometers away from main roads or something like that and everything. But with all those requirements and the need for funding, why has this not been acted on just to assist your small scale farmers? Because others are doing this on a 20 hectare or a 10 hectare plot or something like that. And to Mr. Sussman, is this sector organized? Your hemp cannabis sector, are you organized or still operating as individuals? Because it has been shown that where people are organized, they are better able to get their requests being listened to. Do you have associations or just individual farmers in this regard up to now here in South Africa? And I also want to understand your take from what, for lack of better word, I would say it's licensed brokers. Personally, I've attended out of interest just to see what is happening here. Many private summits of people who would come and say, you pay me so much, I facilitate a license for you, go Sapra, wherever, and huge amounts of monies are involved. And when you look into the kind of farmers in villages and everybody that we have, they would not be able to afford that. And my worry has always been, in case if what is said there publicly is true, they are able to access this license and they sell them again to our people, or they lease them or whatever to our people. Will this not kill this sector? If you have brokers who know how to follow SAPRA to the latter and they get licenses and they go around and say, this is what you can do. I can get you a license for over 100,000. If just for an example. I have seen many pictures, and this has also been shown with you, on tunnels and irrigation for the cannabis farms or whatever. How dire is the situation? You have indicated the problem with water license challenges. I just want to understand, is this a must? Is this a need that it has to be done in the tunnels? It has to have irrigation. How important is irrigation in this? I'm saying this because of what you know in your villages. For an example, the moringa, people would say, no, this plant doesn't use too much water. Once it's grown, it's done and everything. Do we need what we usually see on this if we have to say to our people, can become growers, you have land, and find how could be assisted? Do you need those pivots? If you have to go for a 50 hectare kind of a farm, or it has to be under tunnels and all that. So that will be that from my side. I would allow you, Mr. Sussman, to take a bite and respond to some of the questions and comments made. And then we'll go to Dr. Jafta, and then DM, the Deputy Minister Kapa, will come last. In that order.
Okay, Madam Chairperson, thank you very much. And I've made notes of all the questions and I would like to address them one by one. Honorable, I think it's Twete. You mentioned about a hemp farmer that farmed in your area and then suddenly the hemp farm was closed down. These were the guys making hemp energy drinks. But as I mentioned in the presentation, there is no financial value in cultivating hemp for the raw material, because you're going to spend, if you're looking at a small farm, you can spend up to 2.5 million rand setting up your farm, getting your seeds, your equipment, plowing your field, soil preparation, water, access to water, etc. So you can spend up to 2.5 million rand as a minimum. You do 50 hectares of hemp and you sell all of that as raw material, what those guys probably did, you are going to end up with 73,000 rand profit. And you're not going to be able to pay back any loans or any investors. That is why they will not grow a second crop. It's not going to happen. You have to process through an agro-processing system your hemp biomass into either crude oil, which is CBD oil, which we all know, or you must process it into CBD isolate, and all of that requires money. When I mentioned that what I wanted to do required 79 million rand, that is the size of the investment that you're looking at if you are going to go full Monty and full scale hemp farming. The Honorable Sipa asked about the master plan, and also Kapa also asked about the involvement of cannabis and hemp farmers in the master plan. I don't know of any current cannabis hemp license holders or hemp permit holders or cannabis license holders that were involved in structuring or drawing up the master plan. Once again, the reason why I approached the committee, I felt there was a disconnect between what was set up and what is actually happening on the ground. So to answer that question, no, there was no involvement from the industry or the sector when drawing up these plans. Tebe Kulu asked about how many Africans have hemp permits or cannabis licenses. Unfortunately, that question has to be posed to SAPRA. Because of the POPI Act, I will not be able to have access to that information. But approaching SAPRA, asking them how many Africans have licenses. To be honest, the 3 active cannabis farms that I know of are all white-owned farms. So I won't be able to answer. Only cannabis can be smoked. Hemp cannot be smoked. Hemp does not. I mentioned about the THC levels in cannabis and hemp, tetrahydrocannabinol. Now, the THC levels in cannabis are high enough, excuse the pun, but high enough to give you a high. The THC levels in hemp is too low. You will not get a high from it. So you cannot smoke hemp. There's no smoke value in it. You have to process hemp into a product, whether it's to make material, clothing, or to add it into energy drinks or so forth, or you process it into isolate, where you can use it as a painkiller for a host of medicinal reasons. I did mention about the selling to individuals. You need a Section 21, and SAPRA is not administratively capable of doing that. The other question that was asked, there are no cannabis or hemp associations in South Africa. Everyone is just fighting their own battles separately. We are all approaching government separately for funding and for support, but there are no cannabis or hemp associations. There are WhatsApp groups, there are groups on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, but there are no formal hemp or cannabis associations in South Africa. They're all over the world, but not here. You also mentioned about you implied that current rich farmers can afford to set up their hemp or cannabis farms, which is true. The rural farmers, the poorer farmer needs government support. I mentioned about the water license. A water license can set you back anything from 800,000 to R1,000,000, and no one has got that money. And when we ask the government for that money, government says no. You need to come up with that. That is what they call applicant participation. So we need to come up with that money on our own and our contributions, and none of us have that kind of money. Just to give you an idea, I want to import my seeds from California. They are genetically engineered to give you maximum biomass and to withstand the African sun. So I want to buy 250,000 hemp seeds for 50 hectares at a cost of 850,000 Rand. That's just for the seeds. That's excluding the irrigation system or any form of fertilizer or compost. The other question about the land, your hemp permit or your license, cannabis license, is issued on your license or your permit is issued on the coordinates of a farm. So you need to secure a 10-year lease agreement before you apply for your permit or your license. So the license is issued on the coordinates of the farm. So my license is in the name of Hemp for Life. It's got my name on it, Ben Sassman, and it's got the coordinates of the farm that I want to work on. But I cannot sell that license or permit to anyone else. If I decide to sell the farm, the permit does not go with the farm. The new owner has to reapply because you need to adhere to all the rules and regulations, like the good chair lady said. You need to be 5 kilometers from the nearest school. You need to be 3 kilometers from any public gathering places like bus stops or a library or a swimming pool, whatever. So the license or the permit cannot be, it's non-transferable. You cannot sell the farm with a license. I cannot take that license and move to another farm. It's on the coordinates. So those are restrictions that's put in place, which I feel is a good thing by agriculture and SAPRA. Sharon Letlape asked if this is a cry for help. Definitely. Not just me, but the colleagues in the industry. I'm asking that agriculture and SAPRA relaxes some of their requirements or the criteria to receive these permits and licenses. Agriculture has dropped the police clearance certificate because a lot of people has got minor infractions like outstanding traffic tickets or stuff unrelated to cannabis or hemp, and they are excluded. So the hemp permit is now open to everyone, but there are other requirements that they can relax on, like the fencing, the records and so forth. But the main thing for me is understand I've got a 12-page report. For the last 2 years, I've been compiling it. I've recorded all my interactions with CEDA, CIFA, the IDC, Land Bank, NEF, all the commercial banks. I've documented all my interactions with them and how I've basically begged for funding to set up my operation. I know I've got a winning formula. I've got a client waiting on my product, yet I can't get the funding that I'm looking for. Honorable Tandeka, I must apologize, I did not take down the surname, asked about land bank and the water license and mentioned about Port St. John's. We cannot do any form of partnerships with any other farms. It's against regulations and it's against the law, basically. The water license is critical. Land Bank has got an internal policy that they cannot give funding to purchase a farm if there's no water license attached to it. I also cannot be stealing water from the Vaal River or from any borehole because that will jeopardize my permit. I can lose my permit if I do anything illegal on the farm. So the water license is a requirement. It is critical. And as I said, there's no exceptions, whether you are asking for 2 million rand or you're asking for 500 million rand. The laws around water licenses are the same for everyone. Everyone has to adhere to the same laws. When I revised my business plan, when I could not secure 79 million and I knocked it down to 65 and then to 41 and then to 25, I wanted to just focus on the agro processing of converting hemp biomass into my product through an extractive process to CBD isolate. And I've actually signed offtake agreements with South African hemp farmers where I've given them contracts stating that I will buy up all their hemp biomass from them around the country. And I will pay them, look, the going rate is 11 Rand a kilogram. I will buy it at 20 Rand a kilogram just to make it feasible for them. But it's still a problem because my client who's prepared to buy my isolate is in the United States, and he has agreed to pay $620 per kilogram. But the reason I'm also doing want to do vegetables on the farm is because hemp is a seasonal plant, seasonal crop. It only grows from September to December and from January to April. Anything after that, South Africa is too cold for hemp or cannabis if you're growing it outside. Someone did ask, Chairperson, you asked about tunnels. Now, if your end product is medicinal for cannabis, so in other words, you're going to be making tablets or medicine from your end product, the law states that you need to grow it in tunnels so that there's no cross-pollination with any other plant in the area. And it's also a healthier plant if you're growing it indoors. And if you're growing it in hydroponic tunnels, you can do 4 crops a year versus 2 crops if you are growing it outside. Hemp, 99% of hemp farmers grow outside and will grow outside because hemp goes through an extraction process for it to be purified to 99% pure. So you don't need to farm hemp in tunnels. It's not necessary. I did not get Sam's surname, but Sam also asked the same question about what support am I looking for. Me and the industry, we're looking for money. Bottom line, just talking about the water license, which will give us access to land bank. The water license, none of us, someone mentioned about the rural farmers. We don't have 886,000 Rand. I've already spent 2 years and I've spent 660,000 Rand getting to this point, but I still can't get the money for the water license, where I know Land Bank is in a position to help me. I also want to say, Sam mentioned while he's sitting in the airport that government's hands are tied when it comes to the rules and the regulations. I beg to differ, and I feel government has the final say. You are the custodians of the regulations. You are the lawmakers. whether this is the end of your administration or the beginning of someone else's administration, government still has the final say over the rules and the regulations. They can override what SAPRA is doing. They can override what the Department of Agriculture is doing. There has to be some form of relaxing on the rules and regulations. The implementation of cannabis as a recreational plant, so allowing people to buy it. The illegal cannabis market is a 60 billion rand market in South Africa. People are making, the cartels, the drug dealers, they're making 60 billion rand a year. The government can tap into that by legalizing cannabis for people to smoke it. Drop the Section 21. You currently have 3,600 Section 21 permits out there, but you've got 4 million cannabis smokers. That makes no sense to SARS or to government. You can make up to 10 billion rand in revenue from this industry just by legalizing the smoking of cannabis. I'm not a cannabis smoker, but I feel that there are, the statistics show that there are 4 million smokers in South Africa, but government has the power to make those changes. You are not, your hands are not tied. Sam also mentioned about this industry can drive the economy. Yes, it can drive the economy, but looking at job creation, a 50-hectare farm, the farm that I wanted to purchase and cultivate, I was going to employ 235, a labor force of 235 strong. That is just one farm. We're talking about 370 hemp permit holders and 102 cannabis license holders. That's the amount of people that can be employed in the industry. You know, so yes, it will drive the economy. You've got all kinds of supporting industries that will benefit from cannabis and hemp farming, but you need you must look at the job creation as well. Madam Chairperson spoke about licensed brokers. Yes, for a hemp permit is 672 rand that you need to pay the Department of Agriculture. I charge 9,500 rand to assist people in applying for a hemp permit, because hemp permits are much easier to acquire than a cannabis license. But the cannabis license people who help, they charge anything from 130,000 to 480,000 rand per application. It's a much longer process. You need a master file. So the process is much more involved. It takes longer, but yes, these guys are abusing the goodwill of the potential license holders. I've spoken to many rural farmers who have taken out personal loans, who have sold their vehicles, taken out second mortgages on their houses to pay just to get the license. And that's excluding buying the farm or anything else. Yeah, Madam Chairperson did ask about selling the license. It cannot be sold. The permits cannot be sold. It cannot be transferred. If the farm is sold, you need to reapply for those coordinates again. I mentioned about tunnels, but the application, just the last comment I want to make, the application process for a cannabis license or a hemp permit, it's a nightmare. If you don't know what you're doing, it can take you up to 2 years or 3 years to get your license or permit. You know, people like myself who have a little bit of understanding how the system works, we comply and we get our permits for our applicants and our clients successfully within 2 to 3 months. But the process is a nightmare, and government definitely has to step in and see how they can make some changes to make this bottleneck go away, so that SARS can walk away with 10 to 12 billion rand a year. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sussman. Very fruitful indeed. the meeting that we have. May I at this point ask Dr. Jafta to come in and just comment on what honorable members has spoken to that might affect the department.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair, and good morning to all the honorable members on the platform. I trust you are all well. Chair, I will attempt to reply to some of the issues raised. Unfortunately, the department did not have the presentation. It was only circulated this morning. But I will make an attempt to give you some responses. Chair, I think the bottom line of Mr. Sussman's plea and presentation relates to the absence of or not having access to any sort of funding. The biggest challenge, and we've had this conversation with various funding institutions, especially those who have links to government departments such as IDC, who is linked to the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. The biggest challenge is, Chair, around the current and persisting legal position with around cannabis in South Africa. So their challenge is that whilst that illegal status of cannabis remains in the country, it's very difficult or even illegal for them to fund any activity because it would be unlawful in terms of I hope I have the legislation correct here, but in terms of the Prevention of Organized Crimes Act. And that is the major legal challenge. Now, you would recall that the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill has reached an advanced stage, but that only legalizes the level of possession and use at a private for private individuals. With the removal then of cannabis through the Private Purposes Bill from the Drugs Act, whether that makes it now a bit more legal for funding institutions to consider businesses who wants to engage in cannabis, I don't know. It's still work that one needs to undertake to determine what are the consequences of the Cannabis for Private Purposes Bill. So for the department, Chairperson, we have included at least hemp in the framework of CASP. It's our Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. Unfortunately, up to now, we have not seen in the last year any uptake of hemp through the provinces for their CASP applications. We are still to determine why that is so, but perhaps it may have related to other issues such as seed availability, but it has been included in the CASP framework for that the provinces use to assist farmers, but only for hemp. In the interim, Chair, there is work that we have started towards addressing the illegality of cannabis but you have to bear in mind that we still don't have comprehensive legislation that will deal with the legalization of cannabis. So we have Private Purposes Bill that will only deal with private use. For hemp, the department has declared hemp as an agricultural crop. And there, Mr. Sussman, we have, as you've indicated, we've relaxed the hemp cultivation permit conditions. Beyond the fencing, Mr. Sussman, we've also changed the size limitation for cultivation. So all of what industry had complained about from that were restrictions, We believe for hemp production, those have been addressed. Under if I go back to the interim legal measures, the South African Police Service also issued a national order to ensure that there is no arrest for personal use and cultivation of cannabis. We have received reports that there are still some challenges, but what ought not to happen is that people are arrested for possession and use for private purposes of cannabis. Then the SAPRA has also proposed amendments to the schedules. It was published in the middle of January with a 2-month comment period, which will end mid-March. And these changes aims to what these change of schedules aim to do is to limit SAPRA's oversight of cannabis for medicinal purposes. Any other use of cannabis would then go into the relevant departments. As an example, if it's going to be for industrial application, then agriculture will need to provide for that. If it's going to go into animal feed, then agriculture would need to provide for it. If it's into cosmetics and other purposes, then the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition would provide for it. So as long as you not make a medicinal claim around cannabis, then you will not be required to do any required to obtain any authorization with SAPRA. But these are the proposed schedule changes that are now out for public comment, and I would suggest that Mr. Sussman, as well as private sector, do consider making those inputs, because that is an attempt to move us forward. But in the long run, Chair, what is still required is the overarching legislation for cannabis, and together with the presidency, the department and the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition has started some work on that. But as you know, it's really only in terms of, at this point, as to what such legislation would cover and what would be the process that we would be undertaking. So it's still a far way off before we will have comprehensive cannabis legislation. But the department, together with Trade, Industry and Competition and the presidency, also attempts to coordinate different departments' activities as it relates to cannabis. And therefore, Chairperson, it would be important that those departments specifically can report comprehensively around the areas of incentives around the area of water licensing. Otherwise, my understanding at this point is not as detailed. Then, in terms of the consultation and the inclusion of the sector in the master plan, we have definitely, in our initial consultations on the master plan through 2019 onwards, engaged the industry, and we will go back into our archives and provide that information. But more recently, there has been a steering committee established, and this is part of the master plan framework that we have followed. And in that steering committee, we have traditional leaders. We have members of the Rastafari community, as well as traditional health practitioners. And coincidentally, we will be meeting, having our second meeting of the steering committee tomorrow. But we've recognized that we might at this point not have all of the stakeholders involved in the steering committee. And therefore, one of the things we will be discussing tomorrow is, how, in terms of the representation at the steering committee. And this is the challenge that we have with a sector that is not organized as you would have like in the grain sector. But it is work that we continue to assist the sector on. But it would be important for them to organize themselves so that representation is more efficient, because you don't expect that we will have at a steering committee level everyone, but that there is due representation just to ensure that work continues. Chairperson, yeah, that is what the response that I can offer at this point, mindful that we also were receiving the presentation as it was made. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jafta. I allowed you to go on for the benefit of Mtate Sassman and the benefit of us here to know what's the stance within the department. Allow me then, honorable members, to invite the Deputy Minister responsible for rural development, Deputy Minister Kapa, to have a word or two so that we step off this item. Honorable Kapa.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Good morning to the honorable members and our guests in the meeting. Thank you also for the opportunity, and I welcome the reports and the responses that we have had from the honorable members, as well as from the business person who actually addressed us this morning. We really appreciate. I think I will resort to your suggestion, Chair, that and with the other honorable members, that the department should request that we be invited to come and make full representation, because the responses put forward by Mr. Jafta is also not the report that we have set down and them reporting to us and understand exactly the positions he is putting forward in this meeting. One, there has been a very not organized way of dealing with this particular program. Maybe it is because it's got a lot of interest in it, and there has not been a smooth running between the provinces and the national, given whether it was decriminalized and therefore is legal. At the same time, it is not for trading, it is for medicinal use, and in the main, it has always been illegally used for trading. And to say now you sell it for this and not for this, and without a clear act that legislate and regulate such an action was not easy. I'll say this because I know most of the provinces have started these pilots in certain regions and also have put funds, whether they were to educate or to train or to make preparations for future use and engagement in the process. Is not clear, but there has been these ongoing workshops, etc. And Chairperson, I want to raise this because it's now becoming a little bit of a hazard, because you talk of medicinal use and it is out there in the market, either for application as oils and creams or as in bottles to treat blood pressure or to treat that. But as to the measurement and other things has not been scientifically done. But if there is someone who is doing it with clear regulations, others who actually have been seniors in the production will start doing the same without the necessary capacity and guidance. So that's the little bit of a worry that it is in full force. I agree with the presenter. Almost in small gardens, it's replacing food gardens. It is there because people are seeking to hide it, but they hide it, but they are also producing it because there is a big delay in the actual putting forward the necessary legislations, or rather interim measures to keep our hands on in order to regulate. At some stage, if Mr. Drafter will remember, it was relocated to the presidency because of the agency that it was operation something like Kauleza. So that we had no process therefore at that stage up until these committees have come. But I think having to discuss as the politicians in that side of the department, we will also need the fact that we really need a political champion in this, because now that we are the IMC, there are 3 departments involved. That will be your justice, your social development, your Department of Agriculture, because it's produced on the land and therefore is agricultural in nature, and then the health part of it to ensure that it is not happening.
I need to work out real quick.
And lastly, the fact that you also need a health standard, science, etc., for its pharmaceutical use, and as much as socially it might be a drug that is causing a lot of disaster, like any other type of a drug. That's why social worker comes in. But it has not been made clear, particularly myself, that who is the political champion that pulls these departments together, that is able to say we are due to report. So it's only done when it is required, when there's someone inquiring something, like when we are invited to but under normal circumstances, the driving force is at its lowest level. And therefore, I would apologize for, in a way, not taking our principles forward all the time, in whether there's a stoppage or whether we are actually moving forward. And then request honestly, humbly, that we should go back as the department, try and bring all the affected together so that we have a report that reflects the journey we have traveled. It would be a very unfortunate day to leave no legacy, to leave some sort of confusion when we give the baton to the next cadres that will take this route. I thank you, and I really don't want not to apologize for what seems to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DM Kappa, honorable members. I gave you about 2 hours since 9 o'clock up to now, just to deal with this report, the presentation that we had. And I see Honorable Masipa's hand is up. I don't want to open another round. Tate Masipa, I would
It's not another round. I just want to make a comment quickly, a request actually. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible. Go on, Honorable.
Yeah. Chair, I think
Honorable Kappa, just mute. DM Kappa, mute. Sorry, Tate Masipa. Yeah. Tate Masipa.
Okay, Chair. Yes, Chair. The request from my side is that can we have something in writing from the department, the way they were explaining, what the issues are. And I think that will just help us, because I don't think the cadres are coming back. So when we take over, at least we've got a proper report that we can work from. Thank you very much, Chair.
I'm an order winner.
Order and Kate not coming back.
What you're saying is really out of order. You can't be debating.
Honorable
this.
Masipa, the cadres will be here, but Honorable Kappa is saying probably we must afford them an opportunity as a department to come and present the overall thing, and that will be facilitated. We'll look at the program. The chair is on the platform, is listening, and the secretariat is here. We'll make sure that whilst we're here, we're in charge, still we get that report. Honorable members, I would want to thank Ntate Sassman and release him. And thanks very much, Mr. Sassman, for this presentation. As a committee, we will do our part and continue to hold the department accountable. We have heard what is your challenges, but what is very important is that what we indicated, that if possible as the sector, you need to also to be organized. We understand that this is not easy, but let's forge ahead. You are released from the platform.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson and honorable members. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable members. We now go into the second item, that is budgetary review and recommendation report. I don't know if Honorable Mandela is able to continue or is still held up. Okay, seems that he's still held up. At this point in time, let me invite the content advisors. We will recall, honorable members, that we received a message yesterday. There was a glitch with the systems in Parliament, ICT issues and everything. And the report, the draft report could only be circulated this morning. So we hope that you would understand it was not easy, even those that had meetings yesterday. It was not easy. We had a challenge, and ICT reported that. But the committee secretariat communicated also to say they are unable to send us any link, any reports at that point. So can I, at this point, ask the content advisors to fly the report, the draft report, and take us through? Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. I'm gonna try. I'm trying to share. All right. Yes, I've just been given permission. Just for a moment, when I'm trying to open the report. Sorry for the delay. Okay. Thank you. Is it now visible to everyone?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, yes, so after the deliberations or the briefings by the department and the entities, and having listened to the members' inputs, questions, we put this report together. As the Honorable Chairperson was saying, Chairperson for this meeting was saying, it has been difficult, the whole of yesterday to access it. So we have this report here as a draft report, which we are requesting members to consider, and if there are issues that members feel like they have been left out or they want them added, or want to discuss something, it's an opportunity for that. So the idea is that at the end of this presentation, members can then give a go ahead and say, well, it's okay, it's adopted, and then we move forward. So I suggest that I go straight to the observations and recommendations, because the rest of the report's presentation is actually a summary of what has been presented, a summary of members' comments and what they have observed, what the members were not happy about. If that is okay, I will then move to the section on the committee's observation. Because members didn't have access to the report, I'll try and read or summarize the particular points on observations. Okay. It's still about entities here and the finances. Yes, so in terms of observations, this laptop is. We start with committee's observations related to the main vote, the department. The first point we are making on the basis of the inputs from members and the reports from the department and the Auditor General is that the improvement in the department's audit outcome from a qualification of its financial statement in the prior year to an unqualified opinion with findings was noted. But the concern about repeat audit findings from the Auditor General in respect of non-compliance with the PFMA and Treasury regulations, also uncertainties in respect of legal claims against the department, non-compliance with the SCM policies, lack of consequence management, and deficiencies in internal control remained a major concern. The other observation was that when it comes to monitoring of the implementation of the audit improvement action plans, the committee observed that there was no adequate monitoring, and the reason being that you still find repeat audit findings from the Auditor General. And not to say that there hasn't been any progress, there has been progress, but the fact that they still remain, it shows perhaps the monitoring initiatives are not yielding anticipated results. The committee also commended the department for achieving performance targets across all the programs, the 5 programs of the department. That being said, what remains a concern is the misalignment between expenditure and achievements on the planned annual targets. And this can particularly be seen in the administration program, which failed to achieve both of the annual targets for 2022-23, despite receiving a quarter of the department's budget. This program achieved one of the two targets. And I know in the past, this is something that the committee has always been raising, and the department has responded in terms of how difficult it is, particularly given the fact that sometimes activities would have taken place, but then in terms of achievement of the target, you are not able to achieve. And that's precisely that point, that when you carry out activities and you don't see the results in terms of what you wanted to achieve, it becomes a problem. So this misalignment needs to be looked at. Inability to effectively and adequately address Auditor General's findings, and in this case, the reference was made to internal control deficiencies, lack of consequent management for employee transgressions in terms of performance and revenue management, manifested in continuously increasing irregular expenditure. And remember, the Auditor General highlighted this, and that it's becoming a serious issue, which increased from 5.5 million in the prior year to 15 million in 2022-23. You also had occurrences of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, increasing from 33,000 to 30 million, as well as legal claims against the department. And that the figure there was 1.5 billion. These were largely due to non-compliance with PFMA and Treasury regulations. The committee also, observed lack of urgency and poor response to the plight of destitute, subsistence, and distressed smallholder farmers who not only require support, but capacity building government programs. The example given was the reasons for under expenditure in program 2 was because there was a non-submission of requests for cash subsidies from emerging and small farmers who may have been affected by disease outbreaks. This is just a concern to say we cannot support because we did not have requests for cash. A question is then, what did you do? So this was a question or concern or an observation in this program. Despite the need for for comprehensive farmer support and access to markets for smallholder farmers in particularly, the department is continuously failing to achieve targets to ensure that FPSUs are established and supported to full functionality as planned. And remember that FPSU are expected to play a central role to farmer support and access to market. And in 2022-23, only 12 FPSUs out of the planned 43 were supported to be fully functional. In terms of the redistribution, the proactive land acquisition strategy, I'll just add there, strategy through the agricultural land holding account has made significant strides to ensure access to land by Black farmers. However, its performance rating was lesser than the 2018-19 performance rating due to inadequate funding. So it's a range of reasons. One was inadequate funding. The budgets keep decreasing, the cost of land acquisition. In addition to this, the department has struggled to ensure timely allocation of acquired farms to beneficiaries. And you will remember the Auditor General citing these as one of the questions. The other question that members observed from the work of the department is the fact that Section 2256 of the Constitution requires that legislation for tenure security be passed in order to redress the past injustices of insecure tenure, especially in the communal areas. Since the last attempt where the Communal Land Rights Act was declared unconstitutional, the department has not been able to finalize development of land tenure policy and communal land tenure. So this is one of the outstanding issues. And if I were to give example here, you can see there were conferences and the policy discussion workshops, but coming to the finality on this matter, it has been a difficulty and a great area of concern, because in the absence of this policy, then insecurity continues. Tenure insecurity continues, and what worries is that the Constitution requires Parliament to pass this legislation. With regard to entities under the ARC, Agricultural Research Council, urgent attention is required on the ARC continuously regressing control environment and significant deficiencies that manifested in the successive qualified audit opinion. Again, it's these repeat qualified audit opinions by the Auditor General are a concern. It's a key observation. The committee also observed that ARC has serious challenges with management of its assets. As you remember, the Auditor General highlighted that some of the assets could not be traced due to the asset register, traced to the asset register, while some assets were on the asset register but could not be verified. The committee also observed poor revenue management, that it continues to be a challenge, as the Auditor General highlighted, irregular expenditure of 7.4 million, which may not be accurate and complete, as the entity was qualified on the accuracy and completeness of irregular expenditure. The committee also observed the delay in the construction of FMD facility by the ARC, that this has a negative impact on the development and local production of FMD vaccines, and it raises concerns about security of the grant that was allocated for construction of this facility. With regard to OBP, the committee observed the regression in the OBP's audit outcome from an unqualified audit with no findings on financial information in the prior year to the qualification in the period under review. And that, this may be indicative of the instability at the management level, of the instability at management level, as these entities did not have an appointed CEO since 2022, and members will be aware of the legal case involving the former CEO. There was lack of progress in construction of GMP facility, and this remained a concern because the facility is quite central to sustainability of product development in ensuring OBP's business excellence, improved competitiveness, and subsequently its financial sustainability. The other observation here, which the committee is not happy about, is the delay in the procurement of equipment such as the freeze dryer in the light of OBP's compromised production capacity and constant vaccine shortages. The position of the CEO still is vacant, and as a matter of urgency, it must be filled. So the committee also concerned about that. With regard to NAMC, the committee observed that there hasn't been any improvement in the NAMC's audit outcomes. And this was on the basis of repeat audit findings highlighted by the Auditor General in respect of non-compliance with the PFMA Treasury regulations, and the entity did not adequately address previous repeat audit findings. There was also issues with internal control deficiencies, poor expenditure management, lack of consequence management, which continue to be a challenge. And all of these, you also find them from the Auditor General's report. And that you can see, that there were incidences or occurrences of irregular expenditure, and where there is no evidence of any consequences to those that are involved. And under the year that we are reporting about, NAMC incurred irregular expenditure of 2.1 million. The other point relates to litigation cases against the NAMC, and obviously the committee is concerned about these litigation cases. In this case, the entity is a co-respondent in a 17.5 million lawsuit against the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, and also litigation cases against the entity worth 1.8 million that are related to contracts. And all of this is an observation that these are some of the issues that are really hampering progress in this entity. The Commission on Restitution of Land Rights, the observation here by the committee was that in spite of all the attempts, the Commission has not yet finalized implementation. I think here really is the implementation of the plan for it to become a fully autonomous public entity due to budget limitations. And members will remember that the commissioner always say, yes, we are ready, but they aren't funds. And budget limitations have also affected the number of land claims that could be settled. It does imply that at the current rate of performance and budget allocation, the Commission will not be able to settle all the pre-1998 land claims, over the next 5 years. The other observation here on the basis of what I've just mentioned is that until all pre-1998 land claims are settled, the Commission will be unable to begin processing all the new order land claims. And this state of affairs continues to impact on the lives of those claimants with genuine applications lodged in terms of the restitution amendment of 2014. With the Office of the Valuer General, the committee noted that it's an important statutory body that could potentially address key questions about the cost of acquisition of land for land reform purposes, as it seeks to ensure government pays a just and equitable compensation as provided for in the Constitution. The Ministerial Advisory Panel processes to review the Property Valuation Act has taken too long, with the OVG continuing to struggle to make a significant impact. If anything, rejection of offers based on calculations of just and equitable compensation is among the reasons for slower pace of land redistribution. And members will remember how, the Commission and the department kept on saying, well, we are seeing a slowdown because offers are being rejected. And here the observation is that if that process is concluded and the review is finalized, there's direction, there's clarity about how this, how determination of the values and in a manner that is consistent with the Constitution, that will actually help this process. Strategic leadership for the OVG leadership positions remain vacant, with the incumbents occupying the positions in an acting capacity. So the absence of permanently contracted leadership positions affect the stability and the direction of the Office of the Valuer General. Under the Ingonyama Trust Board, the committee here, in its observation, noted that the board, the ITB as an entity, really functioned for the later part of the year under review without a board to provide leadership and authorization of key projects, which in turn affected the ability of the ITP to perform on certain performance indicators. Many of the non-performance in some areas was as a result of the absence of the board to authorize and approve things. The ITB was yet to fully quantify the cost implications of the court order to pay back money that it collected from communities under its residential lease program. Given the intention to withdraw the appeal of the court order, as well as processes underway by the new board, so it's other processes by the new board, the ITB is yet to pay communities. The new board presented its perspectives on the long-standing matter of the meaning of material benefits and welfare of deserving communities, and how it intended to give effect to the programs to ensure tangible benefits and collaboration with all stakeholders and affected parties. Further, there is a shared understanding with this committee, it's an observation here, with the Committee on Accountability of the Trust and the ITB. I think from the engagement, it was clear that the new board wanted or really felt like they need to account to Parliament. Shall I say, moving from the previous position where the board wanted to account for the ITB resources only and not for the trust. So that's a fundamental shift that the committee has observed. There we now move to recommendations. I do not know, Honorable Chair, if I should move or maybe stop here so that if there are other areas of observations that we may have missed, members make an input. Should I proceed? Chairperson?
My gadget is acting up. Thanks, Dr. Manenza. Let's just give members a chance to check if there are any other inputs, so that when we deal with recommendations, we are done here. Honorable members, is there anything that we would have been missed? Honorable Masipa.
Chairperson, thank you very much. I welcome the presentation, and thank you to Dr. Manenja for the thorough presentation. But I think on the NAMC, as I have indicated that I will be driving, so I might have missed something. I think one of the key observations is that there were unauthorized expenditure or irregular expenditure that was not really, call it, the Treasury never condoned it. It was requested that Treasury condone it. It was not condoned. And obviously it was reported as a previous year incident, but not as this year's incident. I didn't pick it up that he has noted it, but I think it is very important. But the litigation one, I got it, but I think on the irregular expenditure that was never condoned by Treasury, maybe that's an important observation to include in this report. But the rest of the observation, I am happy with them. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Masipa. I hope you have taken note of that, Dr. Manenza.
Thanks. Yeah, we will look at that with Nokuzola to see maybe it may have been addressed somewhere, but we've taken note of that. We will find the appropriate area where we should strengthen this.
Thank you. Let's then move. That was the only hand. Let's go to recommendations.
The recommendations to the Minister and under the Department of Agriculture, Land, Farm and Rural Development. One, ensure that the department engages with internal audit unit and the chairperson of the audit committee in reviewing the department's audit improvement action plan and report to Parliament on a quarterly basis on the implementation of actions to address specific audit findings as highlighted by the Auditor General in respect of internal control deficiencies, non-compliance with legislation, revenue management, and consequence management. That's one. 2, ensure that the department develops a monitoring plan for the implementation of audit action plan for submission to Parliament with progress report on the audit implementation action plans on a quarterly basis. As you will see, this really is requiring the department to come to Parliament and talk about what the Auditor General said. So in an attempt to make sure that there is a movement in terms of the audit, the action plans, the improvement action plan. Submit to Parliament reports on investigations and action that has been taken against transgressors on the reported irregular expenditure of 15.4 million in 2022-23, and a fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 30 million incurred in the same year, including additional irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure from previous years. Submit to Parliament a detailed report on the 234.5 million fruitless and wasteful expenditure worth of PESI vouchers that is under assessment. And the report should include an update on implementation of PESI with a complete breakdown on the utilization of the allocated funds, the M&E plan for the implementation of PESI, and the action plan to specifically address the previous Auditor General's findings relating to PESI. Submit to Parliament progress report on a quarterly basis on the litigation cases against the department. These cases are worth 1.58 billion, including the prior year's 2.2 billion and the 17.5 million on which the NAMC is a co-respondent. Submit an updated detailed report on all farmer production units throughout the country, including the details on their funding, status of functionality, operational activities, and areas or producers that they support. Introduce the land redistribution legislation without delay to address the existing challenges in relation to the cost of land acquisition and provide legislative guidance on the implementation of PLUS and ALA. All the outstanding ALA matters as identified by the Auditor General, particularly accounting for all the funds disbursed, should be addressed within the current financial year. The Minister must further submit a plan of action and thereafter quarterly reports on progress being made to address these issues. Lastly, for the department to submit the draft land tenure policy and the draft communal land tenure bill to the committee, I guess it should be Parliament, for discussion on the policy direction in relation to communal land tenure in South Africa. For the entities, we start with the ARC. Ensure that the ARC board engages regularly with the entity's executive management and internal audit functions to review the entity's audit improvement action plan to address the repeat audit findings that have been identified by the Auditor General. The ARC should submit to Parliament on a quarterly basis progress on the implementation of such an audit improvement action plan and specific activities towards an improved audit outcome. The ARC should submit to Parliament a detailed report on the 7.4 million irregular expenditure, which it received a qualification from the Auditor General, and consequence management steps that have been taken on the expenditure to ensure that ARC submit or here we also saying that they must ensure that the ARC submit progress report to Parliament on a quarterly basis on the construction of FMD facility. Lastly, the ARC should submit to Parliament an improvement plan to address challenges related to asset register and management of its assets. The OBP recommendation to the Minister is that Minister must ensure that the OBP board engages with the entity's executive management and internal audit functions to review the entity's audit improvement action plan to address the audit outcomes and findings from the Auditor General. Again, engage regularly with the board of the OBP to receive an update on resolving the challenges associated with the delays in the GMP project and frequent equipment breakdowns that threaten the OBP's vaccine production potential and consequently the entity's revenue generation and sustainability. Also here, the fourth recommendation for the OBP, Minister to ensure that the OBP on a quarterly basis provide progress report to Parliament on finalization of phase 1 and work on phase 2 of the GMP project, including an update on the litigation process between the entity and the former contractor of the GMP project. And lastly, ensure that the board of the OBP fast-tracks appointment of the CEO and filling of other critical vacancies. Under the NAMC, again, the recommendation to the minister is to ensure that the board engages with the entity's management and audit function. I think by now members can see the focus really is on the audit functions basically, and the improvement or action plans, so that these issues around repeated audit findings as identified by the Auditor General are addressed. And again, for the NAMC, that's the first point that we're recommending to the minister, because the committee was very strong on these issues of repeat audit findings. And for oversight, ensure that NAMC submit to Parliament on a quarterly basis progress on the implementation of the audit improvement action plan and report on steps taken against personnel responsible for 2.1 million irregular expenditure incurred during the year under review. And ensure that the NAMC submit to Parliament the report on 154 million irregular expenditure that was incurred in the previous year, for which the National Treasury refused to condone. Here is Mr. Masipa's point, which I remember I saw it somewhere, but I wasn't sure where. And it's coming here as a recommendation that the NAMC must make sure that that matter they must report on it, so that the committee or even Parliament understand what is the status. And here again, a recommendation to the minister again is to make sure. Let me just go back a little bit. These irregular expenditure, it was incurred in the previous year, for which the National Treasury refused condonement and instructed, it is the National Treasury that instructed the entity to implement consequence management. The NMC reported in 2022 that it has appointed a consultant to further investigate the irregular expenditure. So progress report in this regard is important, and ensure that the board of the NAMC submit to Parliament a report on the implementation of the recommendations from a preliminary report that was issued on 1 February 21 on suspected fraud, corruption, and conflict of interest on the procurement and contract management relating to the agriculture and agro-processing master plan. The NAMC should submit to Parliament progress report on the litigation cases on a quarterly basis. For the Commission, 3 recommendations: that the Minister and the Chief Land Claims Commissioner must engage National Treasury to secure funding for the fully autonomous commission as anticipated in the legislation, and we do indicate in the report that is the Restitution of Land Rights Act, and funding of all order claims, so that all those claims are settled over the next 5 years. So attempt here is to to recommend that, can you finalize all these claims in the next 5 years? And to do that, we know more money is required and National Treasury must come on board. The next recommendation is that until resolution of Land Rights Act amendment is amended to align the reporting times of the department and the commission, the minister must table the reports of the commission as provided for in the Restitution of Land Rights Act. So we do know that the Act requires the commission to table reports by June. But what happens is they submit in September so that it aligns with the department's report. And that is done through request approved by the speaker. But there is a legislation that says submit at this point in time. And I'm sure there was a reason for that. They ensure that, the last recommendation, ensure that the landholding entities that are being established are referred to the Department for Post-Land Transfer Support, including governance matters and other institutional support to enhance social cohesion and functional entities. Could be functional entities here. Without mentioning it, we're thinking of the CPAs and all the trusts. And we do know that it is not the function of the commission to be working on the conflicts and tensions. The department should be doing that. With regard to the OVG, the request here is for the minister to submit a report on the ministerial advisory processes, detailing key activities and what has been achieved to date, and in a date for finalization or completion of its work on the review of PVA, Property Valuation Act, and ensure that strategic leadership positions for the OVG are filled without delay in order to bring about stability in the leadership of the entity, as well as enhancement of its performance. For the Ingonyama Trust Board, we do have here 3 recommendations for the minister to ensure that the ITB and the Ingonyama Trust attend to matters raised by the Auditor General in terms of enhancement of internal controls. The board, through the minister, must report about progress made to ensure internal audit has been set up. The minister, the ITB, and the trustee should engage on matters relating to the future relationship of the Ingonyama Trust Board and the department, consider the implications and report to Parliament. Ensure that the ITB quantifies cost implications of the cost order to pay back money that it collected from communities under its residential lease program, and present a program of action to achieve the court order. The ITB must ensure that it complies with the court order within a reasonable time, taking into consideration the available resources. And that's all. And we conclude by saying that unless indicated, the responses to the recommendations of the committee should be submitted to the National Assembly by no later than 1 month after the report is adopted by the National Assembly, and this report is for consideration by the House. Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, is your gadget?
My gadget is a problem. When I try to unmute, it doesn't go like this.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the recommendations, Dr. Manenza. Honorable members, these are the recommendations, and before we consider them for adoption, are there any inputs or something that could have been left out? And that the Masipa's hand has been up because he's driving. I don't see any hands. Can I
sorry,
then?
Chair.
Oh, Honorable Fete.
I'm sorry, Chair. I tried to raise my hand, but my gadget was a bit freezing. Chair, I'm not sure if I've heard, maybe I've missed it. Is there anything that on your recommendations that talk about the land the labor tenants. Because I'm not sure if I missed it, but if it's covered there, if it's there on the recommendations, then I'm covered. Sure.
All right.
Yes. No, there is no specific recommendation in relation to labor tenants issues. But in the discussion, we do highlight the challenges of labor tenants. But I think members can make a proposal in terms of what is it that we should put, and we will surely put it here. Yeah.
Okay. Any other input, honorable members? None. Can I then place this draft BRRR report before your good selves, honorable members, for adoption? Honorable Chete.
Thank you, Chair. I move for the adoption of this BRRR report, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Chete. Any seconder? Honorable Kapa.
Thank you, Chair. I second the move by Honorable Chete to adopt the reported BRRR report as presented.
Thanks, Honorable Kapa. Honorable members, the BRRR for 2023 has been duly adopted. And that brings us to the end of today's business for the meeting. This meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Long live
you.
the doctor. Long live the doctor.
Happy Tuesday.
We concluded on time.
What are you trying to say?
I'm not trying to say anything. I'm saying we concluded on time. What is there that you do not understand?
No, you know,
Lately, you're very mischievous, you know.
There's some message there.
He always expects a lot from you, Commissioner.
Mischievous. It's the election fever is cropping up on him. Good.
Yeah, we're going to replace the KWs, you know that.
It's okay.
Yeah, be comfortable being a shadow minister. That's a good job.
Yeah, we're going to replace and the top.
The position being the shadow minister. Maintain that.
Bye, colleagues. Have a
Bye.
great week ahead.
Bye.
Recording stopped.